Our former President Jacob Zuma must return to prison until the acting Correctional Services Commissioner decides on the status of his release. On Thursday, the Constitutional Court denied the Correctional Services Department's request to overturn a previous Supreme Court of Appeal verdict. Now, to discuss this further, I'm joined by political analyst from Nelson Mandela University, Ongama Mtimka. So, thank you so much, Ongama, for joining us this morning. Of course, we know a little bit more about the legal aspects behind this ruling. But the bigger question now then is, what are the political impact here on this ruling? And maybe you can shed some more light on this.
Sure. So about the legal aspects, I think one thing I am happy about is the clarity provided that a commissioner cannot act despite a report of the medical board. I think there was a degree of ambiguity in the act there. So now that it's been clarified by the court, it helps prevent an occurrence of a similar nature in future. Politically, this is quite an interesting one for government in particular. We know that when the former president was arrested in 2021, it resulted in the riots. Now, I doubt that the faction that supports former President Zuma has got the political capital to do the same, to carry out the same, acts of looting or encourage that public looting as they did back then. But we cannot leave that to chance. The state needs to make a determination as to how likely that can be a result. And I think that a proper cost-benefit analysis has got to be made. While there should not be a wavering when it comes to, complying with court judgments, the Constitution places the mandate for national security squarely at the executive and at the executive alone. Yes, indeed, there's role for parliamentary oversight, so there should be a proper assessment here in line, but also there's a technical outcome process that's been outlined, where the commissioner needs to make a determination of how much more is left in terms of Zuma's sentence. But I think that can go along also with the process at the executive level of assessing the national the potential risks of rearresting Jacob Zuma, so that once Correctional Services comes back, it makes a determination. At least that determination is not a purely technocratic issue, but it's also mindful of what's the nature of risks that we face as a country should a reincarceration happen, for example.
So just to clarify, from your point of view, I know you mentioned previously, I think in 2021, when the unrest, took place and the incarceration of Jacob Zuma also was happening at that same time. You mentioned something called the butterfly effect regarding all of this and a law-politics nexus.
Sure.
And you just mentioned, you touched, on the July unrest again. Of course, many South Africans are, talking about this, and they are wondering and they are worried, could something like this possibly happen again? And we can't, not look at the fact that these recent truck attacks might possibly have something to do with the July unrest that happened in 2021. It's all allegedly, but we have to then, wonder, are we as a country, should we as a country be concerned? Businesses are looking at this as well.
What I was referring to there with the butterfly effect is the idea in chaos theory that a butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world may actually generate
Well, unfortunately, we lost signal there. That, of course, was political analyst Ongama from the Nelson Mandela University, Ongama Mtimka.